In the early 2000s, I found myself living in my first apartment situated above a pizza place and adjacent to a bustling bar. Being downtown, the building was equipped with a security system that required visitors to buzz in if they didn't reside there. Initially, the security system worked well, as it prevented random drunk individuals from wandering the halls. However, after about a year, new neighbors moved into the apartment across from ours. They seemed to entertain guests at all hours of the day and night, who would indiscriminately press buttons to gain entry instead of buzzing the correct apartment. It was evident that the apartment across the hall was the source of the problem, because when we informed the guests they had the wrong place and refused to let them in, we would hear footsteps passing by our door a few minutes later. Either they would correctly select the button on their second attempt, or one of the other neighbors would unknowingly grant them access. One fateful night around 3 a.m., we received yet another buzz, the second one of the night. I had reached my breaking point. Annoyed and frustrated, I grabbed the receiver and bellowed into it. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" There was a moment of sheepish silence on the other end, followed by a guy explaining that he was searching for a neighbor named Name. My anger subsided slightly, and I calmly informed him that he had the wrong apartment before hanging up. After that incident, the frequency of buzzes decreased and things returned to a state of relative tranquility. However, one day we were startled by the sound of heavy boots thundering up the stairs, a loud bang, and a booming voice, possibly amplified through a loudspeaker shouting, "Everyone on the ground." We remained silently hidden in our apartment until the commotion subsided. It turned out that the apartment across from us was a meth lab, and we inadvertently overheard the police raid. A few days later, we noticed an eviction notice posted for that apartment, citing the health and safety of the other tenants. I've always been the black sheep of the family. Cousins grew up to be doctors, professors, creatives, and whatever else. Meanwhile, I've managed to just make a humble, stable, passive income through some business decisions. Nothing fancy, but I can afford a one-bedroom in New York City and live comfortably with that, and a part-time job in a cafe. Everyone in the family, including my own parents, judge me harshly for not pushing myself to do what my cousins do, especially my one cousin who we will call Randy. The nice comments included, "I can't believe Randy just sealed a deal for X amount of dollars. Are you still working at that crappy cafe? Are you still with what's her name? The girl with the pudgy stomach. Aren't you ever gonna do anything with your life? I'd feel so worthless living like that." Think the stereotypical dude bro who got rich thanks to working for his dad. Multiply that by 10, and you got Randy. Anyway, he always gave me the most nonsense, and eventually I just tuned them out because I get to enjoy my life with my significant other, work part-time, and still afford what I want. So, to cut to the short, Randy has a wife and 2 kids. He also had a mistress. I found this out cause one day I was walking through the city when I saw him walking down the street with a woman who clearly wasn't his wife, arms around each other. I checked Facebook and saw he had indeed posted about visiting a bagel shop in the city while on a business trip that morning, so he was indeed in the city. So I decided, screw it, let me see how this plays out. I followed them for 5 hours, snapped several photos, one of them going into a hotel together. I held on to these and waited until Christmas that year. About 6 months later, I decided to unceremoniously drop printed photos in front of everyone at the table before dinner and made sure to get his wife to see them. Cue screaming and fighting. I actually got a black eye out of it. It was Randy's dad who did it, though, not him. Cue police. A lot of questioning. My significant other and I get kicked out. We head back home after talking to the cops one last time. The aftermath. Besides Randy's wife and another cousin who hates Randy, my family cut me off entirely for several years. Whatever, even my parents had always expressed disappointment in me for not applying myself fully, so no real loss there. Randy got divorced. Lost full custody of the kids after threatening his ex. Family occasionally tries to guilt me into apologizing, but my response is some variation of not gonna apologize for outing a cheating jerk, and I'm promptly blocked for another few months. Me and Randy's ex-wife are good friends and the kids call me uncle, and I have a family who actually loves me unconditionally for once. My significant other and I got married, and that's when my family last tried to get into contact with me and were actually nice for once. Seeing me moving on, I guess, eats at them, maybe realizing their punching bag is gone for good. That's it, really. Living my best life now with a good family as opposed to a bad one. Standard Saturday night. 10 pizzas ordered to a house in a well-to-do area known for its posh houses and expensive cars. We quote our normal delivery time as, despite being quite busy, we were smashing out the orders. At the time, I was borrowing my brother's car to deliver in, as mine was not operational at the time. So, I drive out to this house on the other side of the town and note that there's a decent-sized house party on the go. I get out of the car and walk up to some guys standing on the lawn drinking. Normally, you get a pretty nice reception at house parties, so I didn't think twice. The guys look at me and are like, "Oh, now it's on," and one of them jogs off into the house. Next thing I know, this guy and a few of his mates come out of the house yelling at me about how the delivery was 2 hours instead of 1 hour. I made it in about 45 minutes, had the receipt to prove it, and how the order was messed up. They hadn't looked at it yet either. I told them to talk to the manager if they had an issue. Otherwise, I'd appreciate it if they could pay up so I could get on doing my job. The guy tells me to get lost and that he's taking the pizza for free. I tell him that I'm not giving him anything without paying. I turn and get into my car. Next thing, 3 guys approach the car and start opening the doors. Older car, no central locking, had just got the pizza out the passenger seat, so the car was unlocked. They took the pizza and attempted to attack me. I started the car and floored it. The door swings shut from the momentum, but then I notice my new problem. I'm in a cul-de-sac facing the wrong way. I turn around and what do I see? A line of about 7 guys blocking the road, all walking toward me. I did a quick scan to see if there was an easy way out. Laneway, alley, anything to avoid going near them. And in the short space of time I found nothing. So I basically just floored it at them. When I reached the line, I was doing about 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles per hour, and 2 of them dived out of the way, the others trying to hit the car. I get through, and I'm gone. Call the store on the way home, and the cops are at the shop when I get there. The station was near the store. I filed a report, and they asked me to get in the car. They drove me to the house. By the time we get there, the party is really picking up. People drunk all over the lawn, broken garden gnomes being thrown around, people sitting in a car in the driveway with the music pumping, very drunk. Cops call for backup from the car before we get out. They ask me to wait in the car until they call me. They go up to some guys on the lawn and start speaking. One guy walks off into the house and fetches the guy who abused me, instigating the whole thing. The police talk to him for a bit, and then I'm asked to join them. They go nuts. They start yelling at me for trying to kill them, etc. The cops finally calm some of them down, as another cop car approaches and 3 more police roll in. Several are still abusing and yelling, but most have calmed down. Police are still handling 2 or 3 angry people yelling, threatening, etc. Next thing I know, there's mace, batons flying, people getting thrown to the ground and cuffed. So the whole time I'm standing there, minding my own, being accused of throwing the pizza at them, demanding more money than was owed, etc. In all the mess, another car has turned up, a wagon with the cage in the back, and about 4 people are loaded into it. After about 20-30 minutes of this, we finally get everyone to a calm talking volume. I'm accused of all of the above things, and on top of that, trying to run them over. In short, the guy asking questions says, "I don't believe a thing you or your mates are saying. Give me the money for the pizza so I can give it to the driver." So I'm given the money and driven back to the store by the police car. The house is permanently blacklisted with the store, and the police supply the owner of our store with all the addresses of the main antagonists to also blacklist. There were 8 blacklisted addresses in all. One of them was a long-term customer, as the store record showed well over $10,000 in orders being delivered there. The next day, my brother comes home and asks me what happened at work the night before, as apparently he was accosted by 2 guys who reckoned they saw his car at their party earlier that night. He denied it, and they left him alone after a few minutes of questioning. I quit that job about 4 months later, but I got a text one night from a guy who still worked there, telling me that the owner of one of the blacklisted houses drove to the store, demanding to know why his house was not allowed to be considered for delivery. When he was informed that his child was one of the antagonists in this incident, he marched his kid to the store to apologize to the driver involved. When he was advised I no longer worked there, his dad made him apply for a job as a driver so he could learn his lesson. Kid didn't get the job, and the house didn't get blacklisted. While waiting to board my flight a little bit ago, they asked for a potential volunteer to take a later flight. They were overbooked, and there might only be 2 seats for a family of 4, one child on a lap, the other needed a seat. Seeing the distressed look on the mom's face, I said if they need me, I could take the flight 5 hours later. They say thanks, and if they need me, there would be some form of compensation. The mom gives me a look of tired gratitude, and we sit back down to wait to board. We board, and they don't seem to need me, since someone didn't show up. I take my seat, and a moment later, the seat next to me is enveloped by a manatee in women's clothes. This immense specimen is spilling both over and under the armrest and invading my personal bubble. Crap, this is going to be a long flight, I think to myself. A man across the aisle, with an empty seat beside him, is smirking as he looks at the woman. She returns his stare and says, "Ain't Cho never seen a black woman before? Don't look at me, you racist." The man sneers at her and then goes back to his Kindle. An uneasy silence falls, and I sigh inwardly again, unexcited about the next 3 hours. A moment later, a flight attendant approaches me with the news that they will need my seat after all. After the lady grunts her way into the aisle, grumbling about moving being a pain, I happily walk to the front. As I am about to walk off, I notice the flight attendant has moved the unpleasant man next to the large woman to make room for the mother to sit with her children. I can't see their expression, but their body language is comically furious. I deplane, laughing, and get the news that the airline is giving me a $300 travel voucher, lunch voucher, and upgrading me to first class for my later flight. This was far more than I expected, and it saved me from a very unpleasant flight. Currently, I am sitting in a bar and offering toasts to random strangers to celebrate my good fortune. So my dad recently was diagnosed with cancer, and while I never wanted him to die, I want nothing to do with him. My father was abusive as heck my entire life. He recently stole from me and hurt my 2-year-old. I didn't just allow him back in my life. I fell for the "I've changed" speech, as did my wife who convinced me to give him a chance. He is not allowed near my son because of this. He stole my wife's Switch and a scale I'd bought. It was fancy as I have been losing weight since 2020 and am down 100 pounds. I told him I was done with him stealing and done with him abusing me and my family because his life is in shambles. This was all before his cancer diagnosis. So now we are back to now. He bought a truck in my name and he kept threatening me because I told my siblings about what happened and that I didn't want anything to do with him. Since the truck was in my name, he was taking up toll bills by crossing a bridge in our town that's tolled, and I can't even get my license redone because the tolls are in my name. I told him to pay them or I'd sell the truck since it was in my name and I had the title. My youngest son, who was 2 months at the time, died due to SIDS in November 2020, and it killed me and during this huge argument. He told me I was fat. I have body dysmorphia from when I was 400 pounds. He said my son dying was my fault and I was a horrible father. It killed me all over again because I've been dealing with PTSD from losing him and on the day we lost him. I was the one fighting with CPR to bring him back, which obviously didn't work, and I've blamed myself every day since. I sold the truck after getting it back with police help. He threatened my life if I took the truck. And now he's apparently dying, and I'm being asked to forgive him by my brothers, and I refuse. The best I can do right now is not go to the police for everything he has done to me.